Funny.
Yeah, I'm gonna run with that. I think that is a great idea with the blanket and the chair.
Hmm.
Yeah, so funny. I'm 100% supportive of this.
That is a wonderful idea. I really should do that.
Take some of the UK pom poms that you got in the back, and a couple
I will
hats,
I will do
set them
that.
on top of it.
Should I take my 7-time
Bottle of
national champion
bourbon.
Jim Beam bottle?
We can ask Maine if they got some on their bar, and we'll put them behind there.
There
Sit you
you go.
behind their bar. There
There
you
you go. That's perfect.
The volunteers to help you will also just come in PJs and do that.
go. Here we go.
I may be reaching out. All right, guys. I'll talk to you later. It's good seeing everybody today,
You
whether
too.
virtually or actually.
Welcome everybody to the April 3rd Rotary Club of Lexington meeting. I will now bring up for our inspiration four-way test and pledge Cheyenne and her mom.
Okay, we're gonna do the four-way test and the pledge first, and then you get to hear from my mom today instead of me, because you're all gonna get sick of hearing from me this month. All right, let's do the pledge first. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And the four-way test. That the truth is fair to all concerned. Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? Okay, have a seat. Okay, so for those of you that don't know, I joined Rotary because my mom joined when I was like 12 and I kind of made fun of her thinking it was like an old people club, and here I am. So anyway, so my mom is the reason I'm involved in Rotary, and she came to visit this week, and her name is Bobby Grill, and she is going to do our inspiration today.
Hello, I bring you greetings from District 6540 in Northern Indiana, where I'm incoming president of a club as well as an assistant governor. And we all have our challenges. So this is going to be brief, but I want you to be aware of the power of Rotary. So I joined Rotary as a 41-year-old. I was a new freshman student in Purdue's engineering program, which was nearly unheard of. I was newly divorced, had 3 children, new community. I was invited to be part of their Rotary Club, which had 17 members. Within 3 months, I was the president, because that's how it goes in small clubs. And that was the beginning of my Rotary family. I realized over the years how important my Rotary group was to me. Other districts, having district meetings, they are my other family. So we all joined for different reasons, but through the years, I realized Rotary is much more. I can give life-saving pediatric surgery to an infant in India. I can provide dental care for children in Guadalajara, Mexico. I can give clean water to children in Ecuador. I can do polio immunizations in Afghanistan. I can give mobility carts to polio victims in Malawi. Through Rotary, I can do all these things. I have remained a Rotarian because I can have an impact on the world, and I'm empowered. I can change the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Bobby. Inspiring indeed. Thank you to Zoom Master Dean for setting up the Zoom meeting again. Welcome to all our Zoomies. Here to introduce our guests, we'll have Sharon Townsend. Sharon.
everybody. I'm glad everybody's here and safe and happy with these storms and all of that. We are all very blessed. So absolutely, I'm just so glad to see you all today. We have visiting Rotarians and we've just met Bobby Grill. Of course, she's Cheyenne's mother and she has introduced herself. So Bobby, if you would stand. Hello, Bobby, welcome. Another visiting Rotarian is Pilar Palacio. She is a visiting Rotarian. There she is. She is past president of her Rotary Club in Quito, Ecuador. So Pilar, welcome. We have other guests. We have two other guests, Dr. Rankin Skinner. Welcome. Is a guest of Dana. And Mette Daly is a guest of Bruce Daly. Mette, welcome. Welcome to everyone. Thank you all.
Thank you, Sharon. Boy, Rotary International really suits its name today. Okay, lottery, Tom, at the ready. Now, last week we had a winner. Emery, are you here? Emery, you won last week. And you know what? Emery donated his winnings back to the endowment. Thank you, Emery. I know you don't want the press, you know, and you're humble, and I appreciate that, but it is inspiring to us all. Thank you. All right, I'm going to pull two numbers. Everybody have their tickets ready. The first number is last four digits 3864. The second one, all right, the second one is 3863, and I went through it. I fumbled. Is that you also? Oh my God. That is awesome. That is awesome. All right. And we are looking for a new card. This three of spades, queen of spades. And how much is in there? 250. Queen of spades. No, close, but no cigar. Unbelievable. A two-time winner on the same day. No, close, but no cigar. Thank you for playing, Bill. Here's your $2. Unbelievable. I don't know if I've ever seen that before. That's really good. Way to go. Investment. Bill's willing to invest his $2 to give it back to the endowment. That is really sweet. All right, celebrating birthdays this week. Bill Cox, I saw you here earlier. And Bobby Owens, last verse on 3. 1, 2, 3. Happy birthday to you. Got some announcements. As we know, April is Keeneland, our spring Keeneland meet. It is also our membership drive. So please bring, we've got a great number of guests here. We're going to be introducing the newest Rotarian today. It's membership drive. The biggest lever to our club's success is membership. I encourage you all to bring in a new member this month. We're doing for the membership social. It's being retooled a bit. We'll come back with a date and details on that soon. Dancing with the Stars, we're just over 5 weeks away. And I did the math, not including today. We have the bourbon pull, and we ask everyone to bring in a bottle of bourbon. If 10 people bring in a bottle of bourbon to the meetings over the next 4 meetings, we'll be able to meet our goal of 50. So please bring some bourbon, $50 minimum, and we would appreciate that. Any silent auction items and last minute sponsors would appreciate that as well. Also, doing Rotary differently next on April 17th at the Rotary office, Canva Art and Design Workshop. So that's in the Rotary office. And so if you're interested, talk to Peggy about that. And then Keeneland, Susan, the social chair with the most. We've got Keeneland on Wednesday, April 23rd. See Susan Adams for tickets. Which room are we in? And there's on your table, there's a QR code. Hit that and buy your tickets. Thank you, Susan. That's always a good fun. I'd like to have Dan Miller join us at the podium. Dan is going to share some insights about the scouting report, and looks like we have some really interesting news. Dan Miller.
Well, the really big news is the scouting committee will be meeting after this meeting next to the table that has dessert, so we get all the leftovers. Edwin Gibson is our chair, and he announced that. Our club, like clubs around the world, and the district governor give an award out each year for scouting and Rotary, the Doctorman Award. We have an honoree this year who was in scouting as a youth. He became an Eagle Scout. As an adult, he continued to support scouting. He chaired our scouting committee for many years. I first met him in 1974 at Camp McKee. That's the summer camp that our club helped develop. As his troop from Millersburg was walking down a road, the juvenile delinquents of my troop from Winchester started throwing rocks at him. And we've been friends ever since. So Rob Kirkpatrick, please come forward to be honored.
Thank you, Dan, and congratulations, Rob. Boy, Eagle Scout, what the things you have to do to earn that amazing accomplishment, and through a lifetime. Way to go. And then before we were going to introduce our newest Rotarian. We heard about Edwin leading the scouting committee. After this, we'll also have an abridged dancing with the Lexington Stars committee meeting, and community outreach, Alicia, committee meeting, and a pollinator garden. Jake and Judy, you'll be leading that after. So boy, the Rotary Club of Lexington is busy. Here to introduce our very newest and my favorite part of the announcements, our newest Rotarian, Marcus Cross.
Brother. It's always an honor to see Marc Witt over here. He is one fantastic person, and he was the best boss in the world 100 years ago at EKU. So we're thrilled to have you here with us, Marc. Additionally, you know, sometimes when you meet somebody, you can kind of tell they just have that gleam and push and drive and glow in their eyes and in their hearts. And I just met Cole probably about 2 months ago, and I sensed the same thing with him, and that real deep interest in lots of things and Rotary. And so I'm thrilled to introduce you today to Cole Mayer right here. Cole is an arborist with Bartlett Tree Experts here in town. Before that, he was with the National Park Service in here in this beautiful country of ours, and one of our beautiful national parks. Which one was it?
Everywhere.
Everywhere. Okay.
About 4 places out west.
Wow.
Yeah.
Great. He is married to Christy Mayer, and he has a son, Bo, and a daughter, Maddie. So it's a thrill to see a lot of newer members here. It's a thrill and an honor to introduce our newest member, and we welcome you with all heartiness and encouragement, and know you're going to be one of our stars with the Lexington Rotary Club. So best of luck, Cole.
Thank you, Marcus, and welcome, Cole. You did hear the pollinator garden committee meeting is, and I know you might be busy these next few days. Arborist in a tornadic rainstorm is a good guy to know. All right, and here for our speaker, I introduce Laurel to introduce our speaker.
I feel like Marcus may have given the perfect introduction for our guest speaker today, but it is my pleasure to introduce Marc Witt. He has successfully accumulated nearly 4 decades working in the public relations space as a senior leader and teacher in higher ed institutions across Kentucky. He's also consulted for numerous companies in both the US and also in several countries around the world. His contribution really, I think most significantly, is as a teacher and mentor. We are delighted to have him here today to share a little bit about one of his publications. His book, PR Lessons Learned Along the Way, has been recognized as number 4 on the list of all-time 100 best books around PR. Over the course of 40 years in his career, he's been recognized with many honors. His work has been said to be very impactful because he is a public relations practitioner who has achieved a distinguished service record and is clearly identified as a role model for other professionals through chapter, district, and national service. I first got to know Marc in 2003 when I worked at EKU in his department. I've considered him a colleague, a friend, and a mentor, and I am delighted to have him speak to us today.
Wow. Thank you. Boy, I'll tell you, if nothing else, I'm going to leave here feeling great. So thank you all so much. And boy, this has been like old home week for me. I've already come into the room and met several of you I haven't seen for a while, and seeing others. Oh gosh. Well, and this is a lively group, Brad. I can tell. I will admit I was a little bit concerned. I knew that Laurel was going to introduce me. But waiting out here, there were like 3 or 4 who I have known just as long, if not longer, than Laurel, and they were kind of fighting on who was going to get to introduce me, and it wasn't going to be quite as flattering. So I was kind of sweating BBs there. So thank you all for not introducing me today. So I bring greetings on behalf of the University of Kentucky and our president, Dr. Eli Capilouto, and thanks to each of you for your commitment to service. You know, we take service for granted. And as Rotarians, you all are truly making a difference. You know, you can look at our world and about 90% just do what it takes to get by. And then you've got the 10% who not only see to that, but go beyond to make a difference for others. And so I applaud you for all your efforts. Thank you so much. Today, I want to talk to you as briefly as I can, because I know you all are on time schedule, but I want to talk to you all what I believe are 10 essential leadership lessons that I have learned along my way. When Laurel mentioned 40 years of being in this work, I thought, oh my goodness, that's right. Daniel Boone and I were classmates, and we came to the Cumberland Gap together, and it really has gone by pretty quick. But some of these, I want to spend a little bit of time on a few of these, and then we'll go through quickly on the others. And I want first to say that I would love to connect with you. If any of you all have any questions following time here, please, I'll be glad to meet with you. But I'm on social media like everybody else is, and would certainly love to connect with you there. So what are those 10 things? Well, the number one thing I would point out is that people expect excellence. People expect excellence, don't you believe? I mean, how many times have you ever thought about going out to grab a burger and you tell a group of friends, hey, let's go grab a burger tonight. I know the most mediocre place in town, you know? Well, I mean, that sounds ridiculous because it is. Why? Because we immediately expect something, not only excellence, but what my challenge to each of you, and it's something I challenge myself on every single day, is to go one step, if not more, just above being excellent and being exceptional. Being exceptional. Because, you know, we live in a day and time where we hear the word branding so much. And for those who are in the business of public relations and communications and marketing, sometimes we think of branding being the logo you have on the front door. Or the color palette that you use, that's going to be branding. But my argument is that branding is actually spelled SERVICE, service, service. And one of the best lessons that I ever learned about what true branding was from when just an incredible man who was probably one of the best storytellers I ever knew. You could sit down for dinner at their house, and literally it would be maybe 2 hours later that you'd be getting up from the table, not because he was hogging the conversation, but I mean, he was so enthralling with his storytelling. Sometimes you would laugh, sometimes you would cry, but yet he was very, very engaging. But more importantly than being a good storyteller, his brand was the service that he always gave to others. And I learned this quite well in my junior year in high school. I won't tell you when that was, but Daniel and I were getting close to entering EKU. But I worked at his service station. How many here remember what a service station was? Okay, all right. Okay, well, my freshman year, I had built up, I was a little nervous. I mean, I was always close to my granddad, but I never asked him for a job. And maybe there's some of you here in the room today that you remember when first time maybe you went to a grandparent and wanted to do a job for them, and somehow you enter a whole new zone of life to ask them. And so I nervously asked him if I could start working for him in the summers. Good news was he hired me. It was going to be for $25 a week. I was excited. I was actually going to have a little bit of money in my pocket. And so I came to work the very first day wearing cutoff shorts and a pair of blown out Converse tennis shoes and a ratty t-shirt. And he looked at me and he said, "I thought you were coming to work today." And I said, "Well, I am." He said, "Not wearing that, you're not." and he wound up giving me a uniform. So I had my very own pure oil service station uniform. I was ready to go. Okay. So fast forward, I did well. I learned how to change oil and all that my first summer. And then fast forward to my junior year, I was made in charge of the wash bay. Now, you all may laugh about that, but that was one of the biggest areas that my granddad made money from, in addition to gas and selling tires. He had a huge wash and wax business, and he put me, his junior in high school, I was 17 years old, to be in charge of that. And that particular summer, we had a new Army recruiter in town. Now, I grew up in the big city of Paintsville. Anybody here from Paintsville or over in Eastern Kentucky? Okay, well, you all are not from the big city then. Okay, so anyway, we had a new Army recruiter in town who drove a beautiful 1965 apple red Corvette. Oh, I mean, to this day, I covet that man. You know, I can remember as he would come through downtown and the buildings would reverberate from the sound of that engine. It was incredible. So he came over, he pulled up to the station, and I saw him talking to my granddad, and my granddad's shaking his head. And then my granddad looks my way and does this. here was my opportunity. I didn't know what it was going to be. But anyway, I come over but my granddad explains to me that the Army sergeant was new in town and that he wanted to have the best wash and wax job possibly could have. And I was going to be in charge of it. Well, I didn't know enough not to be excited. I mean, I was ready to go. So I pulled that car in and I just wanted to give him the best job possible. So I literally worked about 6 hours in the heat of that June, of that summer, in the wash and wax bay of my granddad's station, making sure that inside and out that car was perfect. And guess what? Rolled out, the sun, just like it is every day in Kentucky, like we're here, the sun is always out in our old Kentucky home. The sun hit it, that car was glistening, it was showroom ready. I was feeling a little proud, and my granddad thought I did a good job. So the Army sergeant came across the street and he looked at it, and my granddad said to him, "So what do you think of this job?" And literally, I've never seen this before or since. He literally took a white glove out. He took a white glove out and started going down the exterior of the car. And each time he could not find anything. Right. He went and then he opens the car doors. He would go inside that, could not find a thing. But guess what he did? He, like so many people, perhaps that you've known, who are just trying to find something wrong with what you've done. Y'all ever been there before? Mm-hmm. He goes to the exhaust pipes, goes inside. He had chrome tailpipes, and I made sure that those were cleaned and waxed and all, but I did not go into the interior, in the inside. And his hand came back as soot. Well, he immediately launched into an incredible tirade on my granddad, blaming him for the lack of a job, poor service, called him everything but sunshine, and I feel horrible. I am standing there watching my granddad, who I admire so much, standing there taking. But let me tell you though, guys, the thing about service and your brand was what I learned at that very moment from him. He never turned away from the sergeant. He never argued back with him. He never looked at me and said, "Boy, kids today, they just don't get it like they should." He never came down on me. Instead, he accepted responsibility on my behalf and said, "Well, we thought we gave it our best, but not until you're police will that be the best." And he turns to me and he says, "Mark, you've heard what the sergeant is saying. Can you take that car back in and give it an even better job?" Wow. He believed in me. He believed in me. And no doubt there are people in your life who have felt the same way at times. So man, I took that car in. Tailpipes were the first to be cleaned. We brought that car out, and guess what? The sergeant came back ready to just be just as gruff. He couldn't find anything. And now he's a little bit, not quite as loud. And he said, "Well, what do I owe you for this job?" And my granddad said, "Absolutely nothing. Nothing." "Nothing? Wow, you all been working on my car all day long." "Nothing. But this is the one thing that I want you to do," he said to the sergeant. He said, "I want you to tell your friends that service always comes first here, and we want to invite them to be here." And guess what happened, guys? My granddad's business, which had first started dealing with just this one man, wound up having a contract to service all of the military recruiters in the region. They would come to Paintsville to do his business, and it became a big business for him, all because he knew how to handle service. So people expect excellence, and even at times when they get a little gruff with you, swallow hard. We've all been there, but be exceptional. And guess what? People will always return. And then number two, closely related to that, is that expect moments of failure and learn from them. We live in a day and time where we absolutely fear failure. don't we? Oh, gosh, I can remember when I first started in this work, and Sharon and I go back, way back, when I first started this work, and there were probably times that she would walk away and say, gosh, that's about the greenest PR guy I've ever seen. But it lives through this day. Okay. But you know, when we start out in a job, you know, there is that natural tendency that we want to be perfect. We don't want to fear. But the problem is, if we continue that throughout our career, we get paralyzed by it. Some will get absolutely paralyzed by fear. And what happens when we get paralyzed by fear? We will continue to make more mistakes. So we need to always learn from what those mistakes are. And if you happen to be a supervisor for those who are brand new in the work, remember, and this was a great lesson given me when I first started the work. I had my supervisor said to me once that he said, you know, when you think about it, when somebody new comes on your staff, your knowledge level and experience level are already up here in comparison to theirs that is here. So don't expect them to be here with you. Grow them along the way, and that way that helps alleviate this fear, this paralysis that they might have. Then 3, lead by example. Lead by example. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm a firm believer that character and integrity must always come first. Character and integrity must always come first. When you think about it, the only thing that we actually own in this life is our integrity, our name. And if any of us are ever placed in a situation where we are asked to do something that we know, you know, trust that gut, you know, it oftentimes helps. But if you're being asked to do something that you just have a feeling is not right, or say, you know, it's not that big of a deal, but you know, just barely, you know, just, you know, kind of wink, wink, guys, it is far better to walk away from a situation like that or an opportunity, as long as you are able to look yourself in the mirror at the end of the day and say, I have maintained my character and integrity. So it must always come first. Number four, meet each day with high expectations. Meet each day with high expectations. You know, you should literally, all of us, and even though there are days where it kind of is hard, you know, especially when it's raining on a morning and you would like to maybe, you know, maybe I can stay in bed a little bit longer today. Or maybe, you know, there's a tough meeting that's getting ready to happen, and it's kind of hard to look at the day ahead with high expectations. But ladies and gentlemen, that is something that helps drive that person. I mentioned a minute ago about the 10% versus the 90%. You know, the 90% might try to find a way to avoid meeting that day with high expectation. The 10%, which are the Rotary Club members here in Lexington, you all go in. I can almost assure you, but just looking at your all's faces, you go in wanting to make that day the best day possible. For me personally, I always think about going into work, and I live in Richmond, so I have an opportunity. You talk about meeting the day with expectations. Sometimes early morning commutes from Richmond to Lexington, and having a couple of drivers who, well, we won't go that far, but anyway, but along the way, I'm always thinking in my mind, what do I want to achieve today? And, you know, and some days the achievement might be huge, but actually on most days, it might be just that much. But if I can achieve just that much, that's more than what yesterday was. And so we need to meet each and every day with expectation. Number 5, grab the low-hanging fruit before seeking the apple at the top of the tree. Say what? When I have a lot of granddad stories today, but my other grandfather, my granddad Witt, he and my grandmother had a beautiful apple tree in their yard. And as a little fella, it was a yellow delicious apple tree. And this particular year, the apples were absolutely fantastic. In particular, there was an apple that grew way up on the very top of this tree. And oh my goodness, 8-year-old Mark was just bound and determined to climb that tree to get that apple until my mom knew what I was up to. And she said, now, Mark, you climb that tree, you could fall, you could break an arm, break a leg. Any of you parents ever had that conversation with a child? You know, so in my mind, you know, before her, yes, Mom, yes, I'm not going to climb that tree, but boy, I'm looking at that apple. It is right up there. I've got to grab that apple. So while I thought no one was around, I started scaling that tree. And oh my goodness, once I got up there, that tree, it was about as tall as this building. I mean, that's the way it looked. And I got to the very top of the tree, and just as I was reaching for that apple, my granddad shouts, Marcus Calvin Witt. Ooh, that's never good. You come down. I felt like Zacchaeus right there. But anyway, you come down, you're gonna break a leg. So I said, well, I'm trying to get this. I don't care what you're trying to get down here. So I scaled back down the tree. And he said, young man, what were you trying to do? And I said, you see that apple up there? That is a huge, yellow, delicious apple. Oh, I bet it's so good. And he said, I want you to look around you. So what? I look around. He said, I want you to stand still and just look around you. What do you see? And guess what? There were the same size yellow, delicious apples right in front of my face, dangling right in front of me. You know, I was so concerned about getting what was on the top of that tree that I was not focused on what was around me. And ladies and gentlemen, that is a challenge that I think that we have. There's nothing wrong in our careers of reaching for those apples way on top of the tree. It's good to stretch ourselves, and we need to stretch. But along the way, we need to be smart. We need to be strategic and look at what those opportunities are around us. You know, who are people that we can network with? What are those relationships, those positive relationships that we can begin cultivating? What are opportunities? What are ideas? All of those. And so while that apple is good, look first and try to grab that low-hanging fruit before scaling the tree. Number 6, keep yourself fresh and relevant. Keep yourself fresh and relevant. If you know, lifelong learning, boy, I'm a real believer. Now, Bridget, I know that you are, and the good work that you do with the Preacher Committee. And you know, lifelong learning. If we just simply left either our high school or our college experience and said, "Oh, know it all, don't need anything else," and there may be some that we know who are like that, but guys, we won't get very far in life if we just stop learning. You know, if I continued to use some of the communication technologies that I used 40 years ago and thought that was the great thing for today, I would really be missing out on a whole lot. I think back to one of my early experiences. For a brief period, for about 5 years, I served as the director of public relations at Georgetown College. And at that time, every single time we did a press release, we had to type it out, you know, on the IBM, and then we would have a piece of paper, and then we'd take it to the copier, and then we'd run off multiple copies, and then we'd have interns that would be responsible for folding and stuffing envelopes and licking those envelopes, putting the stamps on and getting them out in the mail. That was until one day, Marc Witt's life changed. Fax machine. Oh my goodness. And not only was the fax machine the latest and greatest, but the college had decided that because we were one of those blowing and going PR offices. We needed one that would broadcast up to 32 copies. Oh my gosh, are you kidding? And so we were so excited. We even had a reception and ribbon cutting that day for our fax machine. So I'm sorry to say that. That's kind of corny, but anyway. But going quickly, and I know time is going, but 7, from time to time, we all take shrapnel during our career, become battle tested and not battle worn. Become battle tested and not battle worn. Number 8, and boy, I think we all need to remind ourselves of this. I know I certainly do, is to maintain a good sense of humor. Maintain a good sense of humor. If there was ever a time, now I'm preaching, folks, need an amen. If there was ever a time we need to maintain a good sense of humor, it's today, because it will always see you and me through life's ups and downs and keep us from breaking in two. Number 9, go out of your way each day to help, encourage, love, or celebrate somebody. Kindness never falls out of fashion. You're going to repeat that last line with me, guys. Kindness never falls out of fashion. We've got to live that. We've got to live that. And if you see somebody in your workplace who maybe is having a tough day, don't walk by them. Stop. Take the opportunity. Or if somebody has had an achievement of some kind, let them know. Let them know. You know, when one person on your team succeeds, guess what? The whole succeeds. We're all successful because somebody. So let people know kindness never falls out of fashion. And then last, don't forget to have fun along the way. You know, as Laurel mentioned, about 40 years, man, 96.5% Marcus has been a lot of fun. There's been a little bit, you know, that's been tough, and that's okay too, because we learn from those tough experiences. We get that tough hide. I tell people that I'm actually about 110 pounds. The rest of me is just tough, thick hide from experiences. So anyway, but ladies and gentlemen, remember to have fun along the way, to enjoy every single aspect that we have in this wonderful life. Thank you all very, very much.
Mark, from a PR standpoint, we're all like our own PR people these days with social media, Facebook, Twitter, everything. What guidance would you give us to kind of maintain our personal brand in a really challenging, I think, environment?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'll tell you what I personally do. I personally, even though that I've got very strong opinions in certain areas of my Christian walk and politics, I never ever get that out. I mean, I keep that among you know, family and friends, and we discuss pros and cons and all that. But I think that there's a real, as we are all seeing, there's a real danger that as we put that out, rather than having any kind of civil discourse, it seems like that what used to be referred to as social networking. Remember when social media first came out and you had the term social networking? And that was when we really tried to gather people together. Whether or not they understood completely what your points were, there just seemed to be greater civility toward each other. So what I try to do now is to share those things that perhaps for the collective good, we can remind ourselves, you know, what we are, you know, what we stand for, the good things that we can come together on. So that's pretty much kind of the stance that I personally have taken. So, and I think that each person has to kind of find that, you know, what that right spot is for them. So that's a great question.
One more question. I have a question. You have 2 books out. You have one coming out in November. Can you share a little bit about your work?
Sure. Well, sure. Well, I was telling Brad, I never ever intended to author a book. I was actually helping a friend of mine that I was in college with. He became a book publisher, and one day we were having coffee in downtown Richmond, and he had already published a number of nonfictions, and we got to talking, and he said, "So when are we going to publish your book?" And my immediate response was, you know, and he wasn't laughing, and he said, "No, I'm serious. When can we do yours?" And so he told me, he said, "Write me 2 or 3 chapters, and if I really like it, we'll move ahead. If I think they're garbage, I'll let you know." And yes, he would. So thankfully, he liked it, and so that turned out my first book, PR Lessons Learned Along the Way, came out in 2020. And then a couple of years later, I felt like there was, not that I was looking at doing a number 2, but a couple of years later, as I was crossing Clay's Ferry, that's a great place between, you know, if you're commuting back home, you can have some good thinking time. And I thought, boy, you know, if you were trying to define what made up a masterful public relations professional, what would be those essential habits? And so I thought of 8 that would be critical for that. And so I have to give a shout out to my mom, who sadly we're looking at the first anniversary of her passing, but about a year before the book came out, she asked me how it was going. She lived in Danville, and I told her, I said, "Well, it's going great, but I just for the life of me cannot think of a catchy title for it." And she said, "Well, you know what I've always said, when in doubt, make applesauce." And I went, "Holy cow, that's a eureka moment." You know, I said, "That's the title I need." And sure enough, she would use that title, meaning to find a place where you can kind of clear your mind out to refocus. And it was wonderful. So I've included, in honor of Mom, I included her applesauce recipe in the back of that book. And so book number 3 is titled Takeaways, and it'll be coming out Thanksgiving. So.
Give it up for Marc. Thank you, Marc. On behalf of the Rotary Club of Lexington and our very own Bill Strauss, we give you a lithograph of his photographical styling. Thank you. And Marc, if you'll be around for a little bit if anybody has some questions afterward. Thank you, Marc. Just a couple of things. Thanks to John Wharton and his continued leadership in editing The Wheel Horse. It's a great addition. Make sure you take a look at all the great stories. We'll look forward to seeing you next week, and we are adjourned.